In a previous audio, I mentioned that I was going to start going over the traits of narcissistic personality disorder. A lot of you already know what narcissism is. In layman's terms, it's basically someone who makes things all about them. Now, there are several personality traits, certain physical and verbal cues that are given, certain signals that are sent off by these people who suffer from this disorder. I'm just going to go ahead and give you one of them now. People who usually suffer from this particular disorder have what is called a grandiose sense of importance. In other words, they think they're bigger than what they are. Every time they have a conversation about their accomplishments, it's always on such a huge scale. They place their position and their duties way above everyone else in their field. They're at the top of it no matter what, even though they have not been so designated. Every accomplishment that they do, they're either the first one to do it that particular way or it's better than the way it's been done. It's something that the whole universe is life-changing, is universal, is something that's groundbreaking, they're going to be remembered by this for the rest of their entire life and the lives of their children and great-grandchildren and so on and so forth. And it's really just a simple thing that everybody else can do. Let me give you an example. Let's say, for instance, you're over at a cookout or a family reunion. It's that time of the year where they're having a lot of those. And, a lot of times you run into distant relatives, and you always have that group of people that try to play the one-up game, especially if they haven't seen or heard from each other in a while. The question is posed, okay, what have you been up to? And then this person tells their story, and then it goes on to the next person, and they tell their story, and the next person who tell their story. And you do have a couple people in the group that probably just had this little competition thing since they were little. So then, they'll tell their story, and, they'll probably embellish just a little bit to make the other one, feel smaller than them. Just on that level, they tell a little white lie or something to try to make themselves a little bit better. You always have those one or two that are in competition. That's expected when you're dealing with a whole bunch of people that get together. But there's this one particular person, let's say they're just showing up to the reunion. They can't even pull up and get out the car like a normal person. You got to hear the horn blaring all the way down the street, or they're playing really, really loud music, or when they park the car, they park it in a very odd spot so everybody can see them. And then when they get out of the vehicle, I probably rev the engine before they turn the car off, something to draw attention to them. And then when they get out of the car, instead of just getting out of the car like a normal person, they've got to do it, a certain type of way where everybody's just got to pay attention to them. And then they've got to be all loud and boisterous, all eyes on me type attitude. You know those type of people. You know those types. Now, this person might be, let's say, the manager of a restaurant. It's a restaurant he created. It's a good 5-star restaurant. You got Michelin chefs. He's doing very well. But the truth of the matter is there are a lot of 5-star restaurants with Michelin chefs all over the country, all over the world. But he is going to go in and he's going to start talking about how he's coming up with this groundbreaking dish that has all these imported items, and that, he just knows that it's going to turn the world on its ear because it's going to be so good that everybody's going to want it on their table, and how he's going to market it, and how everybody in all the countries in the world is going to want some, because when he goes online, it's $1 million product and blah, blah, blah. Now, there's nothing wrong with having faith in something you created. And, you hope in your mind that it turns out to be great. And it's good to kind of, boost yourself a little bit. But people with narcissistic personality disorder, they take something as simple as a food product, a sauce that they created, and all of a sudden it's more life-saving than cancer, drugs is something that's going to save the world, famine matter. Oh yeah, the government, I'm going to get a government contract for this sauce so the sauce can be served at the president, so the president can have it every meal. Because I know somebody who teaches over at Howard University who has a niece who's an intern for the press secretary at the White House. And by the time I get this marketed and I get it patented and pushed through the FDA for approval, then, she's already told me that the president is going to be the one that's going to be eating this. And once he starts eating it, that means this whole country has got it. And the U.S. is the leader of the country. You guys get what I'm saying with this? Something is, like a sauce. All of a sudden, you got every leader in the world eating it. You've got it being put on the space shuttle to go to the moon. People who have narcissistic personality disorder, they do not know what moderation is. They have no clue what it is. And they already know in the back of their mind it's just a bit much. It seems like they just can't seem to control themselves. It is their duty everywhere that they go to be seen, to be noticed, to be paid attention to. And whatever plans they have, it could be something as simple as, what time do you get up in the morning? One person will say 5:30, the other person will say 7, the other person will say 8. Person who's a narcissist will say, oh, I get up 4:30 every morning and I go to the gym and I do an hour and a half on the weights because I can bench press 500 and and then I get into my 5-class Mercedes and come on, y'all. It is too much. They're always going overboard. They're making a point of taking a simple situation and turning it around where all eyes are on them because they're doing something so grand or so wonderful. And you always have those one or two that'll sit there and egg them on and say, oh, wow, that's wonderful. That's great. And it doesn't help them any at all. These people do not like to blend in with the crowd. They cannot sit and be quiet if they go anywhere, and they darn sure cannot stand to be ignored. They're going to make you pay attention to them. So you know exactly how that is. These are the type of people that every time y'all go somewhere, even if it's the grocery store for a carton of milk or to the gas station, to the pump, they can't even do that normal and quietly. They got to make it a point that somebody knows who they are by talking loud or having a long conversation with somebody just to get noticed. And every single conversation is about them talking about this super universal, life-changing, metabolic thing that is supposed to change humanity as we know it. It's going to redo creation. And that's part of the disorder. So that's just one trait that I wanted to give you guys. That's one symptom of this of people who have this disorder. The next time I speak to you about it, I'm going to go a little bit into a couple of the reasons why they have this. Because a lot of people who have narcissistic personality disorder, they don't wake up first thing in the morning having it. It has a lot to do with their childhood. And there are two major contributors as to what triggers this disorder. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.